Hello, this is Michael Wojcik with the Rochester City Council update for July 6th, 2016. A few different meetings today. Committee of the Whole meeting, first of all. We had the opportunity to review and discuss the Heritage Preservation Ordinance. It's come a long ways. It's much better than it was, but it still has some pretty significant holes in it, particularly for potentially historic properties where essentially they could be removed from a list and raised with really no public input whatsoever. That's a loophole that we clearly need to close because I quite frankly am certain there are some buildings out there that are waiting to have a loophole form from the current protections that we have so they can be immediately raised. We need to at least have a fair process to designate the buildings that are truly part of our history and worth preserving. And I think we're going to marry the restrictions that we have on demolishing historic buildings with a very handsome set of incentives as well. If you take a look at the Conley Mass building, it's proof that preservation of a two-story historic building in downtown Rochester can work if you have the right people behind it. Let's build on that success and keep doing more of it. In addition to that, we also had we had some discussion about Nice Ride coming to downtown. There's going to be two bike stations, one on the Peace Plaza, one down at the People's Food Co-op. And both very good locations. I'm particularly excited about the Peace Plaza location because it kind of puts the bicycles front and center and makes it easily accessible to patient visitors that might not otherwise know that they're there. We're basically replacing a bike rack that's already there. And, it was not universal appeal for having bikes in downtown Rochester, bike safety or bike infrastructure. But I did point out that organizations like We Bike Rochester are doing a lot to educate people about why you don't want to ride on sidewalks in the downtown, that riding on the sidewalks downtown is not allowed. But it speaks to the fact that so many people are doing that. It speaks to our lack of safe infrastructure for bicycles in the community of Rochester, particularly downtown. As we build safe bicycle infrastructure, people will use that infrastructure, just like they're doing in Minneapolis, which is a colder climate than the city of Rochester. So I think the combination of education that we're doing and better bicycle infrastructure is really going to turn us into the kind of community that we need to be the healthiest community in America, but also to attract young talent, because you're not going to be a city that's attractive to young talent if you don't have good bike infrastructure. And developers know that. I mean, we're working with several developers who are integrating bicycles into their developments because it's just a smart business move, and City of Rochester will catch up. I think we need some of those voices that have been ignored for too long to be heard a little bit more on the importance of this. And I always like to point out that my hierarchy of design needs, particularly in the core of the city, is protect the most vulnerable users. That means those with mobility impairments, those who are pedestrians, those who are on bicycles, and those who are accessing transit. They need to be given the highest priority for safety, and then you build the automobile access around that. And if we do that, we can avoid a lot of the tragedies that we've seen in this community and elsewhere. It's very sad to have seen a young girl die in Albert Lee here last weekend. Another in a collision with with an SUV, and it's hard when you see these kids dying that are the same age as your own kids. And I know that we can do much better than we've currently been doing in Rochester, but it's going to take some leadership. We also had the issue of the downtown parking ramp, which I voted against it basically because I asked for some quite basic information. The Planning and Zoning Commission didn't feel that it really met the guidelines for what we needed to be doing downtown. So I said, hey, staff, we've got these University of Minnesota design folks that are working with us on downtown planning. Let's have them weigh into this. Well, we never actually got that information, which means I'm guessing they probably weren't a big fan of the overall design and covering up some of the proposed pedestrian spaces. Don't know one way or the other, but the bottom line is I gave staff plenty of time to get me that information. I did not receive that information, so I wasn't willing to go forward, and I don't think there was any need to go forward. This ramp doesn't happen, at least in the short run, without a Broadway at Center project, and we are not aware of, we don't know when that's going to be going, if it's going at all. Some other relatively minor things that we dealt with at the City Council. Maybe the other thing that I would mention is the Mayo Clinic, the Mayo Civic Center. There was a portion of the project that was set aside for public art, which is something that I believe these large capital projects should have a set aside for public art. There was a design competition that was put on, and the winner was awarded today. I don't know exactly what it is, and I have no skill at evaluating art whatsoever, but I hope that when the art is available in place, the people of Rochester find that it warms up the space and is something that's intriguing for kids from age of 2 up to about 92, and hope that everyone really enjoys it, but I'm a big believer in having public arts available in the community. Lastly, we typically have dinner meetings. First Monday of the month. This case, it's a Wednesday because of the holiday. And a few years ago, I had a little bit of a disagreement with city staff, and I think this was brought on by Barry Skolnick, who subsequently filed an ethics complaint as well. And it'll be interesting to see what the feedback is on that. I was unhappy because we were holding these dinner meetings between our committee meeting and our evening council meetings at locations that were inaccessible to people who didn't have an automobile. So we all came to consensus that, yeah, let's not do that. If we're going to have these dinner meetings, let's make sure that people who are attending the other meetings can get to and from them to these dinner meetings, because they are public meetings and the public has a right to be there. They don't typically have agenda items. They tend to be more informal. I personally am thinking more and more it's a legacy of the past that we should just kill off. But what bothered me today is it was proposed to be at the country club, the private organization, right near my house, and there's no public transportation access to that. There's no way that somebody could get from the meetings downtown to there and back should they have wanted to. And that's really disappointing to me. So out of principle, I skipped it now. A lot of people frequently skip these meetings because there's not a set agenda. So I think I was one of 3 people that were skipping it. But I'm just going to kind of lay that down, that if we're going to have these meetings in the inaccessible locations, I'm just not going. It's just not right. And I think there was kind of a little bit of a blessing in disguise that I got to go sit and listen in and meet some of the folks. Attended services for the 15-year-old boy that unfortunately lost his life in our community, and spent an hour with listening to some of his friends and family talking about his life, and it's just incredibly saddened to have that happen in your community. Every time it happens, it's pretty hard, and we have a very safe community, but it's still hard to see this, and kid left behind a lot of people that really loved him. So by not attending the dinner meeting, I think I probably had a more meaningful experience anyway. So, as always, thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, shoot them to me. I'm always real responsive with an answer. Thanks a lot.